Today, I'm pleased to welcome to my channel, Dr. Mechor, who is one of the leading ENT surgeons in Canada. He's a business owner, entrepreneur, and he's a president and creator of RhinoClear Nasal Solutions. It's a company that operates from Calgary, Alberta, and very dear to my heart because it's local story, great story to share. And I invited him to tell me a little bit more about his path, about his company. Thank you, Brett, for joining me. Thank you for your time.
Anna, thanks for having me. Glad we could get together on this.
So I usually talk on my channel about medical device industry, about business. I also talk about potential career opportunities for people who are searching for career options in the industry, and basically in any industry that is health sciences related. So I thought it would be a great idea to share your path and your story with those people and share what you do in your company and how you came up with the idea for the product that you're manufacturing and developing. And I think before we get into the product and the company, I'd like to ask you how you started, because I wonder if when you were graduating from medical school, you were setting up your medical practice at the time, did you know that you will be owning a business and you will be multiple businesses owner? And was it entrepreneurship something that you always gravitated towards, or maybe you discovered along the way?
Yeah, when I finished medical school, I was in medical school in the 90s. I don't think I'd actually heard the word entrepreneur or entrepreneurship. I was in Saskatchewan at the time, and basically we were in medical school trained to go out and be doctors and take care of people. So setting up a business and having a second business outside of my medical practice was something I never even considered. And just wasn't an option back then. We didn't see it. Didn't see it growing up. I grew up in a family where my dad was a veterinarian. Most of my family was farming, and that's what we saw. That was day-to-day life. And you got your education and you learned what you needed to learn, and then you went to work. And so that was the way I grew up. So yeah, going through medical school, going through residency, never thought of running my own business. Just wanted to operate and take care of patients that way. And then I got into practice here in Calgary once I finished my fellowship in 2007. And I was part of the university medical group at the University of Calgary. And what I saw there compared to a lot of other places where I'd worked, whether it was in medical school, residency, fellowship, is that as a part of the university group, we were very limited in terms of patients we could see, how often we could work. Our clinic times and hours were very much regulated. And with that, I just like, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. I'm not going to make a living doing this. So we need to do something else. So after a couple of years of being a part of the university group, I opened up my own medical practice and went into, private practice on my own, away from the university group, which has been for me much better because it's an opportunity to control my hours, handle my staff, see the patients I want to see them and when I want to see them, and which has been a really nice change.
Mm-hmm. And when did you come up with the idea for Rhinoclear? And when did you establish the second company, so the company you're running right now?
Yeah, so we started Rhinoclear, it'd be about 6 years ago. And about halfway through my practice, I've been lucky to have some good mentors in my practice, kind of guided me in not just medicine, but life, and guys like Jim Poplinski, Brett Wilson, and the late Ken King. And Ken was a real strong mentor for me, a good father figure for me. And I had the opportunity to watch a lot of Flames games with Ken up in the press box, and we would chat quite a bit. And it was about, I guess, 6-7 years into my practice, because I'm in 14 now. And we were sitting around after a game one night, just chatting, having a beer, and talking to Ken. I kind of said, Ken, what am I going to do the rest of my life? Basically I'm just picking noses, doing surgery on people, but at the end of the day, this is all I'm going to do over the next 20, 30 years. And I said, should I go get a master's degree? Should I do something else? And, what should I do? And Ken was very matter of fact. He goes, and one thing he taught me, and I say this to myself every day, is be the best at what you're the best at. And he goes, if you're not a number guy, if you're not into research, don't do that. He goes, just work. He goes, your job is to take care of people. And so do that the best you can. He goes, the problem with medicine, though, is that you can only help one person at a time. And so you have to be there seeing patients. If you're a physician or you're a dentist, whatever, you have to be there hands-on to see people. So you can't make money unless you're working. And it still costs you money because your practice is still running, you're paying your staff. So you have to be there to make money. So basically he said, try and figure something out that you can make money and help people when you're not there. And so as I was in my practice, the kind of the number one thing that I saw for helping patients get better, to breathe better, was using a nasal rinse. And I could see that, people that I thought would have needed surgery would be rinsing their nose and they got better. They felt better. They could avoid surgery. They wouldn't get sick. So they really reduced their need for antibiotics or nasal steroid sprays. And they were happy to use their nasal rinse, and it worked. And so what became frustrating for me is when I would see people who would use a nasal rinse and they felt better, basically come and say, well, I don't want to use a nasal rinse every day. It's too inconvenient. I don't want to boil water. I don't want to get distilled water. I don't want to have a big mess. I just want something simple and easy to use. And that didn't exist at the time. And a lot of people found that the products that were available at the time were quite irritating for the nose, or they didn't want to use a big contraption to flush their sinuses out and suck things out. So they just wanted something simple and easy to use. So I guess I'd been in practice for quite a while and had a fairly massive patient database at that time, and had probably seen about 20,000 people by that time in my career. And started asking people, like, well, what do you want to use? Like, what's convenient for you to use? What's going to be easy for you to use every single day and stay healthy? And people said, well, I basically just want to be able to pour it into a bottle and rinse my nose. I don't want to have to mix anything. And ideally, it would just show up on my doorstep every month and I could just use it. Wouldn't even have to think about it. And so kept talking to patients, trying to get more and more ideas, and went through medical research and journals and textbooks, literally back over 100 years, as far back as I could find, on nasal rinses. And nasal rinses were invented 5,000 years ago. This is not something new. It really became popular with Dr. Oz and Oprah in 2007, but this has been around for a long, long time. So what we did is I found the solution that I wanted to create, that we wanted to use for people to rinse their nose. And talking with my brother-in-law one Christmas, I said, this is what I want to do. And he was a CFO in an oil and gas company downtown here in Calgary. He goes, well, I'll talk to one of my chemists through work and see what we can do. And so about a month later, the chemist calls me up. He goes, I can't make this product, but I found someone who can. And so he gave me the name of my now partner, Dr. Merle Olson, who's a veterinarian here veterinary pharmaceuticalist here in Calgary, has a company called Alberta Vet Labs, who was a part of a group that made dialysis solution. And so I went and met with Merle, and he had actually trained as a veterinarian with my uncle and was a couple of years after my dad. So there was a bit of a connection there. And I said to Merle, this is what I want to make. This is what I want to build. And he said, yep, let's do it. And so this is about 5 years ago, and it's kind of grown since then. It's taken a while, but we're up and running, which has been exciting.
It's a very inspirational story, because I think, like you said, it's nothing new. It's been around, but you've been able to ask so many people, have a big sample size to ask what can be improved. And I think it's a great story for a business idea and how people start businesses and how people make something different, something relatively new. I mean, it's not a new product, but new approach to the same thing. And right now, Rhinoclear is, if we talk about business cycle, right? So it's already past that stage of launching the product. Right now, it's actually growth stage. And I think it's a huge progress for the company. We both know it's not easy when you are in that stage and when you're growing, and it requires so many resources. I would like to ask you, what are the biggest challenges that you faced during this time, during the past 5 years, as you said? And what did you learn from that process? Can you share that, please?
Well, the biggest thing I've learned is to try and be patient. And I am the least patient person that I know, especially in this current room that I'm in on my own. But yeah, you have to be patient, and things take time. Merle always says that this is a marathon, not a sprint, but I actually disagree. I think it's a marathon of sprints, where you're going at times really, really hard. for a good period of time, and then it slows down for a bit, and then you got to sprint again and try and catch up and get things done, and that can be challenging. For me, it's the downtimes waiting for things to kind of unfold and to happen, which is, for me, has taken the longest period of time to get used to and to tolerate. Because at the start, it really kind of bothered me. Is like, where are things going? What are things doing? And after a while, Merle's a very relaxed guy. He kind of lets things unfold. So I think it's his maturity with that. So it's taken me a little bit of time to let that happen and come around, just to let things unfold and happen as they're going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's a very common comment and realization that people face when they start the journey on business and they build something. I think the patience is definitely something people are referring to, something everyone needs to learn.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of people in this position, whether you're starting a business or you're in business or you're doing something, you like to be busy. And when you're not busy, it can be very unsettling, and that restlessness can kick in. So it's kind of like I say, I always use the analogy of Brad Pitt in the Legends of the Fall, where he's in the middle part, where he's kind of at that turmoil part of his life and just kind of finding that quiet bear inside and staying relaxed. I think that's the hard part for a lot of people. But when you can find that and just let things unfold, it certainly makes the journey a lot easier. Because a lot of that worry and tension is not going to make a big difference. I think in 5-6 years, I've only lost about 3 nights sleep thinking about things, which was good. And one of them was actually before we even started. I was wondering if I was even going to do this. And that was like my first lost night of sleep. And basically got up in the morning and said, yeah, we're either going to do this and move on. And that's it. And
you're in. Yeah.
Here we are. Yeah, exactly.
Great. So let's use this opportunity in this interview as a chance to show your product, because I think it's important, because we're talking about it and it's easy to show people. I have a couple of things here I show. So maybe I'll ask you to tell the audience briefly something about your product, what makes it different and why you created the way you created it, so they know. I have a bottle itself here. It's my bottle. That's why it's full.
Perfect. Yeah, good.
And this is the rinse itself. So if you can tell the audience, what is it about and why you've decided to create it this way?
So with this solution, the solution's a little more like seawater than just plain saline. And so for the nose, it's less irritating, less drying, more physiologic than saline alone, which is the biggest thing. Very comfortable, very soothing inside the nose that we find. We're fine when people use it. The nice thing about our bag is that we can actually compound medications right into the bag. We have a way of inserting medications into the bag. So patients who see their doctor, either ENT allergist, what have you, or adding nasal steroids or antibiotics, anything, we can actually add it right into the bag, which just makes it so much more convenient for people to use. So no mixing at all required, no medication mistakes. It's just simple and easy to use. In terms of the bottle, the biggest issue we had with the bottle that was available is that it was easily contaminated, extremely hard to clean. And when people used it, it didn't actually reach the sinus cavities. It doesn't need to go, or doesn't go where it needs to go. And so we had designed this bottle with the spout and use it inverted exactly. This is going to direct the solution better into the sinus cavities than the current bottles that were available when it first started. So this actually gets the medications where it needs to go, or the rinses where it needs to go, and clears out that major drainage area of the sinuses. And that's and it's easy to clean. It completely empties when you use it. A lot of the other bottles out there don't completely empty. Really not a huge deal if you're just using salt water, but as soon as you start adding medications into your rinse, you're throwing your medications down the drain if it's not used. And so this just takes away a lot of those problems. It just makes it simple, easy, convenient to use. And if you, in my simple way of thinking, if I can make it easy and convenient for people to use, they should therefore use it. And really no excuse. I know myself, I've timed myself. By the time I fill the bottle with rinse, and because it's a pre-made solution, you don't have to use a huge volume of rinse. I get away from myself just using 100 mils when I use the rinse, so half a bottle. By the time I fill the bottle up and use it, it's 22 seconds. So super quick to use. Everybody's got 22 free seconds in their day, right? So you should be able to do that for sure. To help.
I'm a loyal fan now too, so I can.
Awesome.
I
Happy to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. And I think that's important for people to know what we're talking about, because it's very easy to showcase versus some products that I talked before. It's really hard to explain, so I have to visualize or do the research. And I will leave some information below my video as well, so people can go on the website, they can see more, they can read more, they can read your story, the story of the company and the product itself. So hopefully that will also bring more awareness and people
Yeah,
will
a few more million users would be great.
Okay, so let's get back to business story and the business component of this journey that you are in right now. So can you share with me what was the process for setting up the manufacturing in Canada and getting a licensing approval? Because that's something that many people are asking me. And even on my channel, I get a lot of questions after my videos when people are questioning the Canadian way of doing things, like licensing medical products, because as we just discussed before, Canada takes it very seriously when it comes to health related products in general. So what was your experience with that?
Well, thankfully, Merle had been through a lot of these steps before. And so the licensing, it is a process. There's a lot of paperwork to fill out, and then it literally sits on someone's desk in Health Canada until they get to it and fill it out. That took 18 months to get, even though the paperwork is not a huge amount. There is paperwork. It's not journals of paperwork, but there is some. But it takes a long time for it to be reviewed. And the biggest kind of hurdle we had with that is that nasal rinses as a rinse had not been licensed in Canada previously. So even though there were things that were there, this is the first, pre-made rinse that was available for licensing. And that was a bit of a hurdle to get through. So we had to share it with them, a ton of research papers. And once they saw that, we got the approval. But it did take almost 18 months to get that approval. So that's a long time compared to the US, where as a class 1 medical device, it took 2 weeks. We literally fill out your application and you pay your $6,000 a year and you are registered. And so it's very easy in the US to get that approval. The biggest hurdle I think that we would have had in Canada with manufacturing is the cost of startup. So thankfully, I was able to connect with Merle and the people making the solution who really had everything already in place. So they were used to making solutions. This was easy. So everything was there. We just had to buy a few small pieces of equipment in order to, fill the bags up with the solution and have it sealed so it wouldn't leak. And that was a bit of a process in itself, but we were able to get that and get our manufacturing down. That will be getting better as our volumes increase. We have a high-speed filling machine, which will essentially allow us to produce 5 to 7 times more in a day once we get to that level of sales, hopefully sooner than later. In terms of the bottles, it took a while to get the bottles designed. Worked with a fluid engineer to get that done, and we actually produced the bottles here in just outside of Calgary at a plastics manufacturing plant. And had to do that on your own. To set this type of facility up and to make bottles and to make solution probably would have cost well over $1 million to get everything in place. So there's no way I ever would have done that on my own. So I think if you're starting up on a business, find who you can work with. I think is very important, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every new creation. You can find people who are already doing what you need done. It may not be the exact same thing, but you can always adapt to it. Or adapt the process to fit your needs. And I think that's important to do and save you a lot of time and money, but it's worth the search to find those people. Patents were very expensive. In terms of getting patents set up, we are patented in terms of the bottle and the solution and the combination of the two, which is important. But patents are extremely expensive. And we were very fortunate to find an excellent patent agent here in Calgary who we work with. We were able to get some government grants to help with the early stages of the patent application and the process. But we're 5-6 years into it, and we're still battling some of the patents. And it's not cheap to do that. So our patent agent.
Is it patent just for Canada, North America, international? Which one?
We have several patents. We have one in Canada here, which was easier to get. We're working on the US currently, finalizing everything. Australia and Europe. And so working on those. The US has been challenging for patents, just a little bit of a different process. But you have to remember, every time you're going to do these things, it's going to cost you money and
Mhm.
time. So you have to, unless you have the time and the knowledge to do it on your own, expect to pay a ton of money for your patents. It's not an inexpensive process.
Mhm.
Hopefully it's worth it in the end, because and it'll be able to add some value to the company for the IP that we have.
Yeah, which is very interesting because I think it's important for people to know that this is the cost of creating something too, which
Yep.
sometimes it can be a bit, people think maybe it's easier to protect the intellectual property, but it's, I mean, it's easy, but it's not really. So they really
It's a process for sure. Yeah, definitely a process.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you actually partially answered my next question I had for you, the comparison between Canadian market and the US market, because you're one of those companies that actually compare, considering you are applying for, well, you're working on patents in the US, you're also expanding into US and trying to bring the product to the US. And you mentioned that so far the regulatory component was easier in the US than in
Yep.
Canada. What else? What else you can use as an example in comparison between the two, and why you think the U.S. market is important for your company? Because I think it's also something to consider for anyone who is trying to set up something in North America and choosing in between two countries.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing with the US and why you want to expand into the US is they have 10 times the population. And right there, your business I think has a greater chance of growing because of that. What we have found is it is a lot cheaper to transport our product in the US than it is in Canada.
Mhm.
So we can send products to Phoenix or to Denver, pardon me, essentially for the same cost. I can send it to Edmonton or Toronto. Actually, a lot cheaper than sending things to Toronto. So with getting down to the US, it's less expensive to get it down there, but you're going to get a greater population to potentially buy your product for a lot less investment.
Mhm.
If I spend money to send product to Ontario, it's very expensive for a smaller population than I can in a major center in the United States. So just that ability to hit that size of population is going to be a lot more. And it's interesting talking to my colleagues in the US who've been in practice for longer, as long as I have, feel that Americans are more likely to pay for a premium product. Which is always interesting. Canadians, for the most part, don't like to pay for healthcare or a lot of things that we
Yeah,
can
we
get
take it for
for free.
granted potentially, considering the system you're in.
Exactly. I see that in my practice every day. I do procedures here in the office, for helping people breathe better for, a few $100s for disposable cost. And I've had, CFOs of major companies blow up on me for having the audacity to want to charge them. And then I see a lot of patients who, expats who've moved up to Canada here, who, when you talk to them about surgery or needing things, the first thing they say is, well, how much is this going to cost? And, and what do I have to? So they aren't afraid to spend money on premium products and services. And so I think that's where growing in the US is important.
Yeah, no, totally.
Saying that, I want to keep all my Canadian friends healthy and have them breathe better and clear and really not have to go to the doctor. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I created this product in the first place, is if I can keep people healthy, it's less likely they're going to need to go to the doctor, less likely they're going to need to use antibiotics, less likely they're going to need nasal steroids, and much less likely that they're going to need surgery. In my mind, creating an innovative product is only innovative if it basically takes what you're doing and makes it obsolete. So not that I want to put myself out of business from being a surgeon, but if I can keep people from coming to see me, that I can make better simply by using a nasal rinse, it gives people who really need to come in, better access to clinics, better access to surgery, and just keeping the population healthy in general.
No, definitely. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely the cause that worth the journey that you're in, for sure. And I want to bring it up because you mentioned before that one benefit of doing it in Canada is the idea of having higher standards of making something. So the quality of the product automatically goes into a higher level right away. So I think that's something that we definitely need to bring up. So that's the difference too. I actually want to double check. So you said that in the States you applied for medical device class 1.
Class 1 device. Yeah.
What about Canada? Is it the same here?
Same thing. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
same type of
The process is
registration.
much longer. Okay. Just want
Yeah,
to make
just a
sure.
longer process.
You
Now, in order to produce this product in Canada, we have to be produced kind of at a pharmaceutical standard.
Yeah.
So we are produced in a GMP facility, which is very few of those in the country. So we're producing our solution essentially at pharmaceutical standards. We're made in essentially in the same place where veterinary pharmaceuticals are made. So it's very high end. Where if we were in the U.S., I probably
It wouldn't be the same type of.
it would not be the same. You can do it in a much lower, less controlled environment. So our regulations, the quality assurance, quality control that we go through is second to none.
But that's why I think Canadian product, and this product specifically, deserves that like to be called as a higher end product or high standard product. So to me, that's also one of those benefits.
Yeah, the analogy we always like to use is it's champagne versus a cheap sparkling, right? And so if you're producing a true champagne, it's coming from one region in France, and versus something else that's made cheap grape somewhere else. So it's kind of the analogy we like to use on that. So creating a true, an affordable product that everybody can get and use easily.
Yeah. But I think this would puts Canada on that level. I think
I agree. 100%.
The name and the standard, I think, and this is why maybe for people who are considering starting business in Canada, that's something that they need to also equate. Just thinking, if you will achieve that in Canada, it automatically puts you in that position of higher standard product.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I also have a question for you in terms of the challenges when it comes to funding the business, because that's another question that are being asked by people who are looking into getting into entrepreneurship and business. How do you start? Where do you get that first, I guess, chunk of money? Was it easy for you? Was it hard for you? What are the options in Canada to get the funding? I know you mentioned a little bit of grants, government grants, but what else is available?
Yeah, we've been able to have grants through Alberta Innovates, which has been very helpful for us in terms of our early applications for patents, as well as being able to hire staff for business development, which has been great. So we wouldn't have been able to do that without Alberta Innovates. But the vast majority of our funding comes out of pocket. And so myself and Merle are funding this out of pocket, which is not a inexpensive and non-stressful venture. I mean, you have to keep working. So I'm lucky to be in a position where I can work hard in my medical practice and have a good income in order to fund this, as well as still, and still go to work every day. So that's been helpful. There are other, pitch competitions that we've been through and gone through, and that does give you a little bit, gives you a little bit more exposure. But for the most part, if you are able to have personal investment, that's a nice way to do it, because it makes you that much more, you have that much more in the line. So you're going to work at it, I think is important, but you don't want to bankrupt yourself. I think on the other hand, do it within reason. And eventually, if you build that and you show that you're building something special, you will find someone who may believe in you and help you along the way. And that's important to do as well. And we've been lucky with some outside help with that as well.
Yeah, but you've had some revenue for the last few years. Was it like last 3 years that you started seeing sales? Because you said that it took about 18 months to get the approvals and licensing, and maybe a few months to set up the manufacturing. So first sales in like 2 years.
It's going to be about 3 years. Yeah, to be 3 years ago in December, January that we started selling. We had a bit of a break in between. Unfortunately, right at the start of COVID, we had a lot of supply issues that we could not get through, and then we had some manufacturing issues we had to work through. So we lost about 6 months of revenue there. But when things picked up again, it's come back. So yes, getting that recurring revenue stream is helping. Obviously want it to be bigger. That takes time, obviously, and exposure, that takes a lot of time, but yes, that's definitely helping things right now.
Great. What about the expansion strategy and the growth strategy for your company? What are your plans right now? How do you see it grow? Because obviously that's the ultimate goal, like you said, increase the sales, increase the revenue. What are the strategies that you are currently implementing?
So the biggest thing we want to do, especially in Canada, is increase public awareness and exposure of the product. And finding the best way to do that has been a bit of a challenge. Finding how to advertise it properly, whether we've looked at TV, is exceedingly beyond budget. It's so expensive to be on TV with commercials. So you have to have really deep pockets to do that, or outside support for that. Social media, and I'm not sure people are going on Instagram to learn how to rinse their nose. So it's a matter of finding the right medium to get that message out. Word of mouth is certainly important. So getting more and more patients to use it. And I've been very thankful for all my colleagues who have supported me, getting patients samples and writing prescriptions for medications in the rinse. And then, I see a ton of patients in my office, and you've seen my office where there's posters on the wall for people to see it. I don't push it myself. I don't want to be pushy about it. I don't want to have to coerce people into buying it. So I don't do that. I just let people discover it on their own, which I think is helpful.
Yeah.
And in terms of moving to the US, we are working with 2 ENTs, one in Denver and one in Phoenix right now, to hopefully help things get started there. We have one compounding pharmacy in Denver that's excited to start compounding very quickly. And then hopefully the same thing in Phoenix in the new year, and grow. And those are 2 really big markets that we want to be able to grow in. I've been very fortunate in my career to meet people who are willing to help, and my colleagues who are willing to do that can't show my appreciation for those guys enough. Been very, very helpful, and very appreciative of that. And I think that kind of goes with growing a business. I think with what I've been able to do, to use the network I have with patients, and I have some great patients who have been very, very helpful and extremely supportive, and I have great colleagues who are very supportive of that. If you don't have, in my mind, if you don't have that credibility as a physician who's kind of been through the ringers to help that grow, it's hard to grow. You have to have some credibility, I think, in order to help your business start and to grow. I see a lot of these entrepreneur type groups and pitch competitions of people trying to develop things, and there's some great ideas out there. There's amazing ideas out there, but if you don't have that credibility, if you haven't, say a better word, you haven't been in the trenches to see what it's actually like to run a medical practice, to take care of patients, to be up for 48 hours and still trying to do your job, people may not take you seriously. And until you've maybe you've been able to help them, and they see that you're good at what you do, so they're going to believe in you more, I think. And that's something important for people to realize. You got to have that bit of credibility to help things grow.
Yeah. And when it comes to, well, I 100% agree. I think you're right. And it's important to have, and it's much easier to build up on your existing credibility and reputation versus just starting from zero.
Right.
But when it comes to entrepreneurship and running a business, building a business, I would imagine you would agree that it takes certain skills to be successful. But I wondered, and I would like to ask you to tell me, what do you think is a main quality, maybe a couple of personal qualities that people should have, which will help them to succeed? In your opinion, what is important to have as a person?
Well, I think a vision is important. Being able to see what you want to create, but also looking for the solution to a problem that's out there, and not just kind of following the textbook algorithm, because sometimes you have to be able to think outside of the box in order to determine what that solution to a problem may be. I always joke that the solution is Rhinoclear, because it's the perfect solution for the solution. So I think being able to do that, you have to be innovative. You have to, that's one thing. I kind of hate the word entrepreneurship. I think it's kind of a catch-all, but I think it should be more, innovation, innovator versus entrepreneur, that you're creating something special, and you want to create something special. And I think those are important skills to have.
Yeah.
It's not just about making money. I mean, you can always make money, and going into medicine to make money is a bad way to live. You will be very unhappy and dissatisfied. I mean, there are days where, you know, one of my mentors when I was in medical school, he's always kind of said, he goes, there's going to be people you can help. People may not help themselves. He goes, and it will frustrate the heck out of you. And he goes, and some days you just have to go to work to pay the bills. And so you have to kind of, if you're in medicine for the money, you're going to have a really long, miserable life. But you can help a lot of people. And if you can be creative and innovative, you can help more people and reach more people than just those who are in front of you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually think it's a very meaningful and very realistic outlook on what it is. I'm talking about business and medicine, as you said, because I think it's important for people, especially young people who are just trying to get into the world, into a career and looking for it, to know that. Because I think they have limited information about real life experiences. Everything is glorified, everything is getting to be like everything is possible, do this, do that. But I think the real grind, I don't think people know or see it. And they have maybe unrealistic expectations sometimes. And especially when it comes to running a business, regardless if it's a company that you're creating the nasal solution, or a company when you set up your medical practice and you run it on your own, it takes day-to-day routine, it takes discipline, it takes, like you said, you need to have a vision. So I think it's important to send that message. That's actually partially why I am very grateful for this, because I think it's important to hear from people like you.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate that grind of just going to work and doing your job and learning the steps and the skills and meeting the people and taking the time to really see what you want. You know, when I started medical school, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon and work with athletes. And I thought that was, you know, the be all and end all of medicine. And, you know, I, you know, found halfway through medical school that there was, you know, like something else that was so much more fascinating, that I liked a whole lot more. And being an ENT surgeon, and it's cool to do it every day. That, you know, there are days where it's can be long and tedious and you want to go do something else, but there's always something cool that you'll see every day, which is neat. And I do like to see when residents, medical students come through and they see something for the first time. It's pretty awesome experience when you get to see that, because I remember the first time I saw something cool, I was like, wow, that's, you know, it's nice to have that feeling every day, but you don't get that unless you're going to work. You got to be there showing up and seeing people and trying to help people as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brad. I really appreciate this. I think it's an inspirational story in general. I want to thank you for your time, because I know we're running out of time right now. So I want to wrap it up just to say thank you, and to say that I truly believe in the company you're building and the product that you're building. As I said, my bottle I'm using. So
I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your hard work that all you do. I mean, there's very few people who work as hard as you do and in as many things as you are. So it's it's my pleasure to chat with you anytime.
Thank you. Yes, thanks again for this, and all the best to the company, all the best to all the businesses in your medical practice. And I hope, you know, I know we're coming to an end of this year, so I hope this year we will end it strong, and the next year will be even better. So
yep, I agree. Hope so as well. Thanks, Anna.